And hello to the patrons of the Sachem Library. I'm Evan Wiener, and I'm going to talk about this, the golf ball, this, the putter. There it is. There's the putter. And I want to thank Anne-Marie for inviting me to talk about golf today. One of the reasons we're talking about golf is that the U.S. Open is not that far from you, about an hour trip, over in Mamaroneck, New York at the Wingfoot Golf Course. And you won't be able to go there and watch because of COVID-19. There are no fans for the U.S. Open, nor will there be fans for the Masters tournament, which will be in November. Golf in the United States, it originates in Yonkers, New York, right off North Broadway, the first golf course in the United States, 1888. First green of the original 6-hole course, established by St. Andrews, is 90 feet to the east of that sign. That sign doesn't look so good anymore, but that sign on North Broadway in Yonkers. That's where golf started in the United States. But golf has a longer history than that. It may go back to the Roman times, may go back to China. First record of golf, James II banned golf in Scotland in 1457 because it was an unwelcome distraction to learning archery. Hey, you're not going to win any wars with this, but you know, if you got a bow and arrow, hey, you might have a chance at winning a war. And of course, that was in Scotland. Golf originated in Scotland in the 15th century. The 18-hole course was created in St. Andrews in 1764, golf's first major and the world's oldest tournament in existence, the Open, which was not played this year because of COVID-19, also known as the British Open, was played in 1860 in Esher, Scotland. That's James IV. He's the grandson of James II. And James IV decided, you know what, I want to hear about what my grandfather did. Let's all go play golf. He went to play golf. He lifts the ban in 1502. Golf was played on the Musselburgh Links in Scotland as early as March 2nd, 1672. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, Musselburgh is the oldest links course in the world. And Mary, Queen of Scots, well, she was not only the Queen of Scots, but apparently she was the queen of the golf course because Mary, Queen of Scots, also played golf. This is a famous painting of the MacDonald boys playing golf back in the day with their tartans. Scotland was a big golfing area. The oldest surviving rules of golf were compiled in March of 1744 by the Company of Gentlemen Golfers, then named the Honorable Company of Edinburgh Golfers, and always so gentlemanly-like and honorable on the golf course, and I do know people who have cheated on the golf course. The first Open played October 17th, 1860 at the Prestwick Golf Club in Ayrshire, Scotland, and the Scottish golfers won the earliest majors. Welcome to Westchester, and that is Wingfoot, and that is my son. Oh, he was about 9 years old back in June of 1994 when we were there, and it was because of hockey in Harlem, and they had a golf tournament to raise money, and so my son tagged along and met hockey players along the way. It was in Yonkers where this all started. Two Scotsmen, John Reed and Robert Lockhart, set up a hole in an orchard. Reed took some friends to a cow pasture on Lake Avenue on George Washington's birthday, February 22nd, 1888. He had some hickory-shafted clubs and gutta-percha balls that he brought back with him from a business trip to Scotland with John Upham. The three of them improvised holes, and they had 3 holes, and golf was on its way. But the blizzard of 1888 and all 55 inches of snow kind of put the kibosh on golf for a little bit, because even if you had a yellow ball or an orange ball, you weren't going to be able to go through 4.5 feet of snow to play golf on North Broadway in Yonkers. The blizzard killed more than 400 people. 55 inches of snow in the area. There was major snow drifts. powerful winds from the storm. So these guys decided they would wait, and they would wait about 5 weeks. The snow would finally go, and Reed and Lockhart went to a 30-acre meadow owned by a neighborhood butcher by the name of John Scots on North Broadway in Shonard Place, across the street from where the St. Michael's Ukrainian Church is today. And they laid out a 6-hole golf course. Golf is on its way by April. It's time to get real here, and by November 14th, 1888, Reed decided, let's get a club formally organized. Officials were elected. Reed was named the president. There was more merchandise or more golf equipment that came in from Scotland. More people decided to take up golf, and by the spring of 1889, the golf club had 12 members. They continued in Yonkers. They moved to Palisades Avenue in an apple orchard, complete with an apple tree next to the first tee. Grab an apple and then tee off. 1894, more golf played in Westchester. That's the Gray Oaks course on Sawmill River, 9-hole course. The National Amateur Golf Championship was held in October 1894. L.B. Stoddard of St. Andrews defeated Charles B. MacDonald of Chicago. MacDonald wasn't very thrilled with this and complained, hey, this couldn't be right because, you know, we don't have a national organization. And nah, you know what, I played. He really didn't win. He was a sore loser, MacDonald. But MacDonald did get his way because eventually the St. Andrews secretary, the founding member, Henry Talmadge, invited representatives from 4 clubs at this point, the Chicago Golf Club, of which MacDonald was part of, Shinnecock, not far from you, and in Suffolk County, Newport, Rhode Island Golf Club, and the Brookline Club in Massachusetts. You needed some money to play golf, and they met in New York City, and they formed the United States Golf Association with Talmadge as the first secretary. MacDonald was elected vice president, and the first USGA sanctioned U.S. Amateur Championship was held in Newport, and MacDonald won. So all was well with the world. MacDonald got what he wanted, and there was a National Golf Association. The commoners, they weren't welcome. Remember, the Gilded Age is going on at this point, and the guys with a lot of money, the Vanderbilts, J.P. Morgans, those people, hey, they could go up to Westchester. The reason why they went to Westchester is they owned the rails, and there were a lot of land, lots of land in Westchester where you could lay out golf courses, and they were close to the rails, which they had laid out toward Westchester. Remember, Long Island wasn't very well developed. Queens wasn't very well developed. Brooklyn was, but Queens wasn't. So it would take a while before mass transit would catch up to Long Island. So Van Cortlandt Park, you could play golf at Van Cortlandt Park if you were a commoner around 1895. That opened on July 6th, and the course was built because local businessmen in Riverdale, again, place with money, they were looking for private land within New York City to build a new golf course, and the city said, okay, you can have Van Cortlandt Park, but it's got to be open to the public. And most of the clubs at that point were private. Van Cortlandt Park broke new ground. It was a public course, and the popularity of golf soared. If you were from the 5 boroughs, actually 4 boroughs, because Brooklyn was an individual city at that point. If you were from the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, Staten Island, New Jersey, Long Island, you could go to Van Cortlandt Park and play golf. The private clubs, they were all in Westchester for the most part, in the New York City area. In 1897, the St. Andrews Club purchased some property on Jackson Avenue up in Yonkers, Mount Hope. They built an 18-hole course. Some of the members, Andrew Carnegie and Stafford White, the architect, who, among other things, designed the second Madison Square Garden. Jack Nicklaus redesigned that course in 1983. And there is Andrew Carnegie in 1899 playing up on Jackson Avenue at St. Andrews. But women were not welcome. They didn't want any of the women. around. This was a man's thing. Why would you want women around if you were Cornelius Vanderbilt or J.P. Morgan or Jay Gould or any of those people? And the women wanted to play golf. And they probably didn't set out to be pioneers, these women. They just wanted to play golf, but they were going nowhere with their husband. But women got their own course. And women also did something else. They changed the blue laws locally in Yonkers and throughout New York. John Reed's wife, Elizabeth, and this is 1895, Elizabeth decides, you know what, I got some money. There's some land over on North Broadway. I'm going to have my own course. And she does. The Sachem Country Club. And then they moved it to another site overlooking the Hudson River, and they had 100 members. Women power. Sisterhood is powerful, at least in this case. Mostly women, but they did have some men as well. It wasn't one of these hoity-toity clubs. They allowed people to come in. And the men would play on Sunday. And that was a problem because in Westchester and in New York, there was such a thing called the Blue Law, which you couldn't do anything on Sunday. And there is Sachem, and that would become a place of women's rights, women's liberation movement. No, maybe not quite, but some women's rights were gained here. The golf course was open on Sunday. There was a guy by the name of Benjamin Adams who played on Sunday. And Benjamin Adams was arrested while playing golf in May of 1895, 86 rather, and he was arrested for violating the blue laws, which he couldn't do anything. Well, he has a jury trial, and he wins. The members of the Sachem Golf Club could play on Sundays, and so could amateur baseball players in Westchester County and around New York State. So the women inadvertently broke the blue laws or rescinded the law in some ways. And the women had some sway. And this is in the 1890s, the roaring 90s, where you wouldn't think women would have that much sway. And there's Cornelius Vanderbilt. Anderson Cooper is one of his heirs. The Ardsley Country Club hosted the third women's golf got popular in a hurry. The third U.S. women's amateur in 1898. Some of the people in that club: Jay Gould, Cornelius Vanderbilt, J. Pierpont Morgan, William Rockefeller, noted snake oil salesman and oil man, and other notables of the Gilded Age, and they established the club in 1895 on the banks of the Hudson River. It was called the Ardsley Casino. MacDonald built golf courses after his little problem here in Westchester. He laid out a 7-hole golf course in conjunction with the 1892 Chicago World's Fair. World's Fair in Chicago always seemed to have some sort of sports motif in it, whether it was golf in 1892 or the baseball all-star game in 1933. He would design 2 more courses, one of them in Wheaton, Illinois, which became the Chicago Golf Club, and they were among the first of the 18-hole golf courses in the United States. And there is John D. Rockefeller, the Bouviers, Jacqueline Kennedy's family, who lived in Bronxville, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, all members of the Knollwood Country Club, which opened in 1894 on Tarrytown Road, 119, in Westchester. Legend has it that Bobby Jones met with a member of the club, Roberts, and discussed the creation of the Masters Tournament in the Knollwood Grill Room. Westchester Golf, Bedford Tennis Club, 1896, Scarsdale, 1898, Lackabuck in 1912, and Blindbrook in 1915. And that basically established Westchester as the golf capital of the United States, although Long Island and New Jersey were both on Westchester's heels at that point because golf had become so popular. Gene Sarazen from Harrison, New York, and he becomes a great golfer and basically starts hanging around golf courses in Westchester County when he's about 10 years old. He was born Eugenio Sarazen in Harrison, New York. His parents were poor Sicilian immigrants. Sarazen, who would become Sarazen, began caddying at the age of 10 throughout Westchester County, and there were a lot of courses near Harrison, an awful lot of courses near Harrison. Probably had to hitchhike or maybe take a trolley. He took up golf himself, and developed his skills, and taught himself how to play. He would go on to win 39 PGA Tour events, inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 1974. He was the Associated Press Male Athlete of the Year in 1932 and won the PGA's first Lifetime Achievement Award in 1996. Sarazen had many battles in the 1920s with Walter Hagen and Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones was one of the guys who was up there with, say, Chaplin and Jolson and Babe Ruth and Lindbergh and Rudolph Valentino as household names globally in the roaring 1920s. But it was Sarazen, Hagen, and Jones that increased the interest in golf in the United States and also the world in the 1920s, going head-to-head as amateurs. The Winged Foot U.S. Open will be taking place in Winged Foot in a couple of days. First time in 14 years that is going to happen. Winged Foot has hosted 5 U.S. Opens, the 1940 U.S. Amateur Championship, the 1949 Walker Cup. George H.W. Bush was named after Walker, Herbert Walker, who donated the cup. PGA Championship on the West Course, and the East Course has been the site of 2 U.S. Open championships for women and the inaugural U.S. Senior Open. And the 2004 U.S. Amateur was played on both of Winged Foot's courses. Now that is Atlanta, Georgia, and that is the Oakland Cemetery. And it's an interesting cemetery actually to go through. See who's buried there. Bobby Jones is buried there. And people actually bring this and they bring that with them. And there's a little putting range right in front of the grave. And you can see all the golf balls, you can see the tee, and you can see the note written to Bobby Jones by someone saying, "Help, my putter is not working." Bobby Jones was in Westchester in New York a lot back in the day. The PGA, the first championship was held at the Wiener Country Club in Mount Vernon, New York. It was done in 1900. The club would move a couple of times and ended up in Bronxville by 1913. And the first PGA championship was held at the Bronxville course in 1916. Long Jim Barnes wins it, defeating Jock Hutchinson. It's right off the Hutchinson River. I wonder if Hutchinson was related. I don't know. The Quaker Ridge Golf Course in Scarsdale is kind of historical. The guy who did the course, A.W. Tillinghast, did it in 1916, and it was on the property, historic property, because the British Army had camped on that property before defeating George Washington in the Battle of White Plains. Washington was not all that great a general. He lost a lot of battles, but he held his men together. And when he got help from von Steuben and the French, then all of a sudden there was no problem with that. The club would open in 1918 and would become the home of people that included Louis Gimbel and Samuel Bloomingdale and George Gershwin. MacDonald and his engineer, Seth Rayner, designed and oversaw the construction of the Sleepy Hollow course in Westchester, and among the people there, John Jacob Astor IV, Cornelius Vanderbilt III, Edwin Julius Berwin, and others. It was the Gilded Age people that really propelled golf. Amateur versus pro golfer. The amateur game was very popular until about the 1940s. Bobby Jones, probably the greatest amateur golfer ever. He won 5 U.S. amateur championships between 1924 and 1930. In 1930, won the U.S. Open, the British Open, the U.S. Amateur Championship, and the British Amateur Championship. Amateur people looked down upon pro golfers. They were bums, just running around. Amateur guys, they were noble. It wasn't until the 1940s and 50s that professional golf was taken seriously, partially because of Ben Hogan. During the 1930s, playing on the amateur circuit, the top of the sports, but There was no amateur, no money being an amateur. Bobby Jones quits in the 1930s. An Associated Press story at the time noted he was interested in starting his own private golf club. And he was making instructional films for the Warner Brothers. He came from Mount Vernon, New York. So he must have crossed paths in Westchester with the Warner Brothers, who were still in New York in the 1920s. Jones does build his golf course in Augusta, Georgia, opens in 1933. The first Masters took place in 1934. Horton Smith wins it, gets $1,500, basically travel money. The tournament was heard on radio. There's nothing more deadly than golf on radio. I should know. I've done golf on radio. It was a 4-day event. It ushered in a new era in the world of golf. There is Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones at this point is making money from not playing golf. Jones wanted to bring the U.S. Open to his new course. That didn't happen. So Jones and Clifford Roberts, remember they were talking about this great tournament they wanted to do one day, decided, you know what, we'll have our annual tournament, you know, and we'll make it a big tournament. It worked. Of course, it changed the sport. Babe Zaharias, she was a great athlete, really great athlete. Babe Dickerson is her maiden name. She acquired her name during Sandlot baseball games with neighborhood boys because they thought that she batted like Babe Ruth. She was a talented basketball player in high school and was recruited during her senior year to do office work at the Employees Casualty Company of Dallas, mainly because they wanted her to play basketball on the women's basketball team, which was semi-professional, the Golden Cyclones. Between 1930 and 32, she led that basketball team to the finals and the national championship, All-American each year. The AAU, the Amateur Athletic Union Championships, 1932. She competes. She placed in 7 events, taking first place in 5 of them, the shot put, javelin, baseball throws, 85-meter hurdles, and the long jump. She tied for first in the high jump and finished, well, she finished 4th in the discus throw, just 4th. Her performances in the javelin throw, the hurdles, and the high jump allowed her to qualify for the Los Angeles 1932 Olympics, where she broke world records in 3 events. She won gold medals for the javelin, hurdles, and despite clearing the same height as the top finisher in the high jump, she was awarded a silver medal because she went over the bar head first, which wasn't allowed at the time. It was a foul, and she paid for it. But then she decided to become a golfer. She enters the Fort Worth Women's Invitational. That's in November 1932. This is her second one in April of 1933. She captures the title. Now, the posh woman, the socially posh members of the Texas Women's Golf Association told the United States Association, rule her ineligible. She shouldn't be competing as an amateur. They were so upset. They were posh. She was off the street. She was beating them. She would regain her amateur standing in 1943, went on to win 17 straight tournaments, including the British Women's Amateur Championship, first American to do that. She turns pro in 1947 and helps organize the Ladies Professional Golf Association. She puts together this tournament and a circuit. And she's the leading money winner on the LPGA between 1949 and 1951. She gets cancer. She dies shortly after that. She was the greatest athlete of the first half of the 20th century in an Associated Press poll of great athletes, men and women. Hope and Crosby, they were golfers. The clam bake. Bring Crosby's clam bake out in California. After World War II, the Bing Crosby Celebrity Pro-Am became one of the PGA's most popular events. Bob Hope doesn't come on board to sponsor a golf tournament until 1965. By 1960, the Thunderbird Invitational became the Palm Springs Desert Classic. It lacked the pizzazz of Crosby's clam bake because they had all the celebrities. The organizers said to Hope, hey, why don't you come over here and play with us? And he said, no. He said, no. Eventually, his reluctancy ended when his TV sponsor, Chrysler, said, "We're the sponsor of this thing now. We pay you a lot of money to be on TV. You're going." And that's the story behind the Bob Hope Desert Classic. Ben Hogan in the 1940s, a great golfer. He won the money title as a pro 5 times in his career. He won 4 U.S. Open titles, won the Masters twice, the PGA twice, single British Open. In 1953, he won the Masters, the U.S. Open, and the British Open, all in the same year. Byron Nelson, a big money winner as well. In 1945, he won 18 events. He was the first golfer to win more than 10 events. He became the first player to top $50,000 in winning in a single year, $63,000 in 1945. It was Byron Nelson who helped popularize the pro game. 1950s, there's Arnold Palmer, and a noted golfer who lived at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, named Dwight Eisenhower, who happened to be the President of the United States. Arnold Palmer changes the game of golf, but it would be TV that would allow Palmer to change golf. Ike liked golf. The first golf tournament, though, is on a small network called ABC, 14 stations nationally, owned by Paramount. The tournament was the World Championship of Golf. The event was played just outside of Chicago and was televised over the weekend, 1 hour a day by the ABC TV network and any station that wanted to dip into ABC programming. Deacon Palmer was the professional at the 9-hole Latrobe Country Club where the Palmer family lived in western Pennsylvania. Arnold wanted to play golf professionally, and he wins the amateur in 1954, and that serves as his launching pad. And there is the Ayatollah, Frank Chirkanian. He would also change golf. There would be a confluence of 3 people in the 1950s that would do it. Palmer, Chirkanian, the TV guy, and Mike McCormick, the agent. The Ayatollah, you watch golf, you know what he did, because he's the guy who introduced high-angle cameras and new angles. He put roving reporters on the golf course, and he made sure to capture the unique sound of this, the club hitting the ball and the ball falling into the cup. That came to define what you see today, the modern golf coverage. He even changed the way scores were delivered. He said it was just too confusing. He said, let's do this par. What would be the par? The average good golfer going through the course. And they figured out what the par would be. So if you were under par, you were at the top of the leaderboard. If you were over par, you were down at the bottom. He is a member of the Golf Hall of Fame. Pat Summerall gave him the nickname the Ayatollah. Arnie's Army. Arnie was a Coast Guard guy, and that's where he was once, the Coast Guard. Near the Augusta National was Fort Gordon, and that was a basic training camp where the Masters chairman, Clifford Roberts, who came up with this idea with Bobby Jones in the 1920s, was once stationed as a soldier. When the Masters needed volunteers to work the scoreboard, he knew where to go. He went down to Fort Gordon. He said, hey, we need help here. And hey, come over anyway. Here's a whole bunch of passes. So he got guys to work the scoreboard and do other things that are contingent that the golf tournament needed. And then the rest got free passes if they wanted to attend the event. The GIs, they knew that Arnie was one of them. He's Coast Guard. Military men who played the sport like he was leading a battlefield charge, treating par as the enemy, the line that needed to be broken. Soldiers came out to watch their guy at Augusta. On the back 9, a GI working one of the scoreboards noticed all the fans in uniform, and he made a small sign and he held it up. Arnie's Army. And that's how Arnie's Army started. And some of you might have been members of Arnie's Army. And there is Mike McCormick. Mike McCormick was a economics guy, and he was a golfer. And Arnie met McCormick on a golf course in North Carolina when they were both students at universities in North Carolina. Palmer became McCormick's first client. Deal was struck with a handshake. McCormick launched the idea of an athlete as a global brand. While Palmer was winning tournaments, the popularity of the game was booming. As McCormick said, he made the birdies, I make the business deals. McCormick was combining his love of golf and business and recognizing the power of TV, while I made revisions in the contracts. Palmer was playing major championships. McCormick was negotiating major endorsement deals. In Palmer's first 2 years with McCormick, his endorsement earnings grew from $6,000 to $500,000. Palmer won the Masters, played with presidents, pitched Pennzoil. There is a great outtake of Howard Cosell that's floating around the internet that he did 40 years ago when he was upset with what was going on with his radio show and some stuff that was going on. And he wasn't satisfied, and Cosell, talking to nobody in particular into his microphone, "I've got Pennzoil in my ear." He also said, this is so simple. It's not a network TV production. He was very upset about not being able to get his radio thing done. Anyway, Palmer pitched Pennzoil and Hertz rental cars in his spare time. And also, you can still get this. Most people have no idea who buy this today, who Arnold Palmer was. It's just some guy on a iced tea can. And so you could get Arnold Palmer's iced tea done by Mike McCormick. Mike McCormick also was the agent for the Pope. Whenever the Pope came to the United States, they went through Mike McCormick to secure the Pope Mobile, to secure venues, to secure security, to secure hotel rooms. Mike McCormick not only was Arnold Palmer's agent, but also the Pope, and that would be Pope Paul VI and Pope John Paul II as well. Palmer's relationship with the Augusta National and the television screen pushed him into the stratosphere of American celebrity. Frank Chirtanian, who produced 38 consecutive Masters broadcasts from 1958 to 96, knew the focus had to be on Arnie because he absolutely fired up the screen. Palmer and England. Only 4 Americans made the field after the mandatory qualifying. 2 of them made the cut in 1960. Arnold Palmer was one of them. He had already won the Masters in the U.S. Open that year, and he wanted to match Ben Hogan's 3-for-3 for the 1953 season. Palmer would lose by 1 stroke, but he showed up, and that was enough for other Americans to go to the Open. And while he's going to the Open, while McCormick is cutting all kinds of deals, Roone Arledge takes over as the head of the ABC sports broadcast team. Roone, get over here. We need to talk to you. We need to talk to Roone because Roone is looking for properties for the wide world of sports with Jim McKay. And he finds one that's available to him. The Open in Britain. And in 1962, the Open, the British Open, gets on American TV. ABC is still only a half network by that point, but it's enough to get interest in the British Open. And there's Roone. Roone was the head of ABC News by the mid-1970s and brought Barbara Walters in to be Harry Reisner's co-anchor on the ABC World News Tonight back in 1976. ABC, or the American Broadcasting Company, was a struggling small U.S. TV network with little direction in 1960. Arledge was brought in to right the ship in terms of sports. He bought all kind of global sports rights, and he brought it into the American households, including the Olympics and the British Open. And with that, the interest would grow. Palmer and the Americans would go to Scotland, and the international players would start coming to the United States, and they would participate in the Masters in Augusta, Georgia, the U.S. Open, and some players from the European Tour and the Japanese Tour were among the people who were in minor tournaments in the United States. Palmer may have saved the British Open as a major tournament. And there are the rivals from the 1950s and 60s. Jack Nicklaus on the left. And he had coronavirus this year. I think he's recovered from it. Arnold Palmer and Gary Player from South Africa. And Gary Player joined the tour in 1957. And within 2 years, he already began to win his first major championship, 1955, the Open, first of 3 British crowns for him. He wins the PGA twice, the Masters 3 times. He completed his career Grand Slam in 1965, winning the Open. Coincidentally, Nicholas Palmer and Player were all Mark McCormick clients. The Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus, won 18 majors. His greatest success came at the Masters, 6-time winner of the tournament, a tournament record, and he won it last in 1986. Nancy Lopez. Nancy Lopez gave a shot in the arm to the women's tour in the 1970s. She was young and she was jubilant, showed a lot of personality. Which helped the LPGA. The LPGA went 2 ways. One, they went with a great golfer like Lopez. The other was with looks like Jan Stevenson and others. And they tried to sell looks. Lopez won 9 tournaments, 5 of them consecutively in 1978. She appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated, won their trophy for the longest scoring average, LPGA Rookie of the Year, LPGA Player of the Year, and the Associated Press Female Athlete of the Year. Tiger Woods dominated golf from the mid-1990s to about 2008 when he ran into all sorts of off-the-course difficulties. He is still the most followed, even though he has only won 1 championship in the last 12 years. He's won about 80 official PGA Tour events, 15 majors. He's 14-1 when going into the final round of a major with at least a share of the lead. 2019, he entered the final round of the Masters, 2 strokes back, and he came from behind to win. That was his first come-from-behind victory. He, along with Harrison's own Eugenio Sarazen, or Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, and Jack Nicklaus, one of 5 players to have won all 4 professional major championships in their careers, and he, which is known as a career Grand Slam, and he was the youngest one to do so. You could play golf on the moon because if you could improvise to get something to look like this, you could bring it up in a spaceship in the command module, in the Apollo command module, and you could shoot golf balls on the moon like Alan Shepard did. February 6, 1971, Alan Shepard pulled out a makeshift 6-iron that he smuggled on board. I get the feeling he didn't smuggle it. On Apollo 14 and hit 2 golf balls on the lunar surface, and he becomes the first, probably the only one, who's ever to swing a golf club or play golf anywhere other than Earth. Alan Shepard is on the moon and on Earth with these things, golf balls. And he never saw where the golf ball went in the moon. Remember, it's 1/6 the gravity, so just went over there. The future of golf. Well, 2017, there was a record number of first-time players, 2.6 million participants. The golf industry said in 2017 that its base remains stable, 23.8 million golfers. Affordability continues to be an issue, and in 2017, 200 golf courses closed. During the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been a few golf courses that have closed. What the future is, well, nobody knows, because nobody knows when we're going to get out of the COVID-19 pandemic. But golf is back. It's being played right now. Golf courses opened early in New York and in New Jersey, and it seems to be working okay with the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, it's a stripped version of golf. You just go out and play golf. There's no 19th hole right now. There's no hanging around right now. So it seems okay, but golf has a problem. Americans who do watch golf tend to be between the ages of 50 and 64, and that's never good for a sport, because you want younger and younger and younger demographics. There's been the film Mickelson against Tiger Woods pay-per-view showings, which have gotten people to watch on the pay-per-view basis. This year, also, I guess they were paired with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning when golf was coming back, just to get people to watch some golf on TV, because there wasn't any sports in the United States for about 2 months, but the demographics aren't good. Still, the U.S. Open will be played in a couple of days, hopefully COVID withstanding, over in Mamaroneck, New York, and the Masters will be played. The British Open wasn't played this year, but they're hoping in 2021 that will happen. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching, and thank Anne-Marie for inviting me. My name is Weiner. I hope you enjoyed our little broadcast here about golf, and hopefully we'll see each other again. Again, thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you to everybody at the Sachem Library, and we'll see you again somewhere in the future. Bye-bye.